welcome to the Survivor Savant podcast. I am your host, Nathan Newport, the self-proclaimed Survivor Savant himself. Today, I am here to tell you guys my thoughts and feelings about Survivor, the Australian Outback, episodes 7 through 9. Now, last week, I heard everything from the wildfires that have been happening in the Outback to the first ever deadlock vote in Survivor history, and also the fight between Kimmy and Alicia and the situation about the chicken, and of course the very first famous Survivor medical evacuation where Michael Skupin got his hands burned in the fire and had to be medevaced by a helicopter from the Kucha camp. Now we're going into this week. We're going into the merge of this season. That's right. We're down to 5 players from Ogakor, 5 players from Kucha, and now we're down to the merge. This is the moment we've been waiting for in this season, where both tribes combine and we get to see how they would clash, how they would get along in the campsite, how they cook food or how they hunt for food differently, and whether or not the tribal bonds will be there, or will tribal bonds break and will form new alliances across that. Now we begin in this episode with the merge episode. Now it's oh my goodness, I say a lot. One of my Jeff Goldblum. Anyway, we start it's episode 7 off with both. I'm doing it again. We start the episode off when both tribes receive a tree mail letter telling them that there's going to be a boys' night out and a girls' night out. So, Ogakor received the boys' night out message informing that Colby and Keith from Ogakor are going over to Kucha to spend the night at the Kucha camp. And then over at Kucha, the girls get a girls' night out letter informing them that they're going to be spending a night over at the Ogakor camp with Tina and Jerry and Amber, and that Elizabeth and Alicia from Kucha are going to be spending the night over there. And when they first read the letter, they assumed that the guys over at Kucha were going to get the girls from Ogakor, and that the guys over at Ogakor assumed that they were going to be getting the girls from Kucha, or at least hanging out with them. I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what it means, but there's definitely a little bit of misreading there, because I mean, when it's boys' night out, you have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, you assume that boys' night out, it's going to be all guys, but they assumed that it was just going to be guys and the girls there. And I'm like, no, that's not the proper definition of how a boys' night out and a girls' night out works. If it's girls' night out, then it's all girls. Then if it's boys' night out, it's all guys. That's normally how those things work, unless you're attracted to different sexes. But I'm getting way too in my head myself. But anyway, so it's all the guys over at the Kucha camp. Jeff, Nick, and Roger, aka Kentucky Joe from Kucha, and Keith and Colby from Ogakor over at the Kucha camp. Now, they got a nice little setup. They got the last remaining chicken that Kucha had, and they got this set up, this really nice dining area with the picnic blanket and the picnic basket that they got from the last episode host reward, which included Mountain Dew and Doritos. And they still even had more Mountain Dew left over, so that's nice. You get some broiled chicken along with some Mountain Dew. That's a nice pairing. I mean, I don't drink Mountain Dew. I'm a water or root beer guy. alcoholic mostly. But, Mountain Dew's okay. Oh my goodness. And then over at the girls' camp, the Ogre camp, we got Alicia and Elizabeth from Kucha, and Tina, Amber, and Jerry from Ogre all in one camp together. And they're kind of upset because I normally eat. Okay, they thought they were gonna meet the guys, but unfortunately, it was only girls, and they thought they were gonna have a nice dinner prepared. Actually, you know what? I think it's the other way around over at Kucha. The guys over at Kucha thought they were gonna make a nice dinner for the girls, and Colby was like, "Sorry to disappoint you, gentlemen, but I didn't bring a skirt." Or had he got a warning, he would have brought a skirt. Oh my goodness. But over at Core, it's they got to eat though. I mean it's rice, but they got to see. Yeah. So basically, the whole point of the camp experience for boys' night out and girls' night out, I almost said guys. My apologies. Is to get a vibe from both teams and who they feel might be on the bottom from each tribe and who might be on the top. And we can already tell from early on that Ogre was wanting to make sure that their numbers stay strong, that nobody from their team gets split up, and that they would eradicate the Kucha tribe mates, just like last season with the Pagong gang, where Tagi got rid of all the Pagong members. I think everyone was like asking who they got along with the most and who they didn't seem to get along with all that well, and they're trying to like find the cracks in both tribes to see where they be at. And I believe Ogre has suspicion about Jeff and how he was not going to be likely be most trusted if he stayed around longer. So they had suspicions about Jeff and the fact that he might have had votes cast for him in previous tribal councils. And then over at Kucha, they might have suspicions about Tina or Keith or maybe even Jerry, that they had votes against them and they might be on the bottom, and that may be a way to like get them to lower their numbers. I'm going somewhere with this. So I explained last time that in episode 4 in last week's episode that after Mitchell and Keith had a tie, and then when they re-voted they had another tie, they had a deadlock vote. Now the deadlock, for those of you who weren't listening from last week's episode, is where if the voting block hasn't changed and that it's still the same number with who they're trying to get rid of, then the only way to break a deadlock is to count the votes that have been casted in previous tribal councils. Now in this case, it was between Keith and Mitchell. Now Keith, seeing how this was the first time he'd ever received votes at a tribal council, he had no votes cast against him in previous tribal councils. Mitchell, however, received 1 vote at tribal council, and therefore with that, he got sent home because of it. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because if there were the case, now that the tribes have merged and Kucha and Ogre are now living at the same camp and they're still having the tribal bonds and they're trying to figure out who has votes cast at previous tribal councils, so that when they do the deadlock vote and they try to count past votes, they would see who had the most and whether or not who would survive out Kucha and who would survive out Ogakor. So that's what they're trying to come across if they were in that situation. So after they both had their nights, by the way, during that it was raining, and I think Ogakor had the fire be put out, and that sucks because Keith, before he left to go to Kucha, he had matches in his jacket that could have lit the fire. Oh, Keith, why did you leave the girls all alone with no fire or keep them warm at night? Unbelievable. Okay, here's the thing though. Everybody knows that fire is the most important thing on Survivor. And the fact that you haven't left anything behind to make sure that fire stays warm, I mean, you could just feed it more wood, but you don't know if there's any case of rain and that the wood could probably get wet. I mean, come on. You gotta think better than that. And the fact that Keith took matches with him, it just kind of like, I don't know if it was a selfish act by Keith that he took matches, but he should have been a lot smarter than that, in my opinion. He should have been smarter than that. And another thing I want to comment. If I was on Survivor, the whole tiebreaker situation would be a whole lot different than that. But the tiebreaker back then on season 2 was a deadlock, where if the vote before that and the recasting of votes were tied again, that would be deadlock. Here's my thoughts on it. If that were to stay in the current season of Survivor, and depending on how many times a tribe goes back to tribal council, that would actually kind of be interesting if the deadlock rule was brought back in tribal council, instead of like discussing amongst one another who they think that they should go out and why. And the only way to like resolve this is if they draw rocks. Now, here's the thing. In my personal opinion, I think having the deadlock vote, where we count votes casted in previous tribal councils, I honestly think, and it does sound unfair, but I think it's a much better solution than to have you pulling rocks, drawing rocks, that could weigh your odds even more. You're setting up a game of chance to where if you pull like a white rock out black rocks, then you're out. Now, here's the thing with me. I mean, I'm all for like beating odds and taking my chances, but at the same time, in Survivor, I cannot let my game go down just because of drawing a rock. I mean, come on. I cannot take my chances with that. I would much rather have my chances be taken with actually, that does bring something up though. In current seasons of Survivor, where they give you a shot in the dark die, the shot in the dark allows you to risk your vote for 1 in 6, depending on how many tribe members there are in the tribal council, a 1 in 6 shot at being safe in the game. There are different skulls in there. A lot of them say not safe, but if you pluck the one scroll that says you're safe, you are guaranteed to be safe from being voted out of tribal council. Now, that's kind of similar with the rock draw scenario. I mean, everybody has to give up their vote for it, but at the same time, it's almost similar with the rock scenario, where if you draw a piece of paper and if it says not safe, that guarantees you that you could be at risk of going home. I will say though, the difference between that and the rock draw, that's only a slight chance that you could be safe or you could not be going home. where they're still voting. But the rock draw is ultimately the kiss of death, in my opinion, in the game of Survivor. To where if you draw that one bad rock, then you're guaranteed going home. So I guess I would kind of prefer like either the shot in the dark being my chance of being what sends me home, or the deadlock vote. I prefer those two chances rather than drawing a rock from a bag and be sent home on that. I would rather prefer those first two than the rocks, in my opinion. But anyway, moving on from that. After that night where it was pouring rain, we then get into both tribes being informed that they're not going to be choosing one of those camps to spend the rest of the merge in, but they're going to a new location where they have to build a new shelter, and they have to have all the supplies they need to rebuild, or not rebuild, but at least have supplies there so that they can be more prepared for the next few more days that they're out there. And they grabbed everything they could, like from crates to blankets to Colby's Texas flag mixed tarp. And they moved to a new location where meeting there is a flag with the it's an orange flag with the Survivor Australian Outback logo on it, and also there is a crate with blankets and freaking crackers, fruit, and cheese, and also wine. Okay, let me tell you this. I love fruit and cheese and crackers. I'll take all of those, but I'm a little iffy about the wine. But here's the thing. I'm mostly kind of I'm not an alcoholic, and I don't drink, but for those who do drink, hey, bombs up to you. But if I were in that scenario, I would kind of like pass on the bottle to somebody else. And I don't know, I guess I'm just not much of a drinker, but I'm not like, you shouldn't drink. I mean, everybody knows their limits, and as long as everybody knows their limits, then that's okay. But me, I'm just gonna say I'm not a drinker. Water / root beer is my drinks. As said before, I am an agua-holic. But anyway, they also get new buffs too. Yeah, they're no longer green or blue. They're now together orange. The merge buff this season is orange. Last season it was green, now it's orange. And they named their tribe Barramundi. Barramundi is the new tribe name. And so Barramundi is a new tribe name. It's named after a really big fish that people try to find out there in the bush of Australia. And what I hear, Barramundi, I'm not sure if it's like one of the most aggressive fish out there, but Barramundi, if I remember right, Barramundi do kind of have like sharp teeth, if I recall. Or at least that's what the flag at their camp indicates, that they have sharp teeth. But no, that's cool. Barramundi is the new tribe name, and they're getting their shelter set up. By the way, Roger decides, or I don't know if it was Roger or the girls that said that there were more actually, you know what? Yeah, I remember now. Roger said that he preferred to have the campsite up in the grassy area where the trees are, so that way they can get a lot higher points. That way you can be much more safe and secure from all the weather and stuff like that. But no, the girls say and I think it's the girls, Amber and Jerry, they prefer to have their camp in the sand because they thought the sand was much more comfortable. Oh my goodness. I don't know why. I've been having like the worst leg cramps today. I don't know why. But that's a different topic. So yeah, they're getting their shelter stand up, and they're all kind of weary of each other. I mean, yeah, they're smiling and they're glad to meet one another, but at the same time, they know it's a game. They know what they're up to and what they're here for. Now, I'm not gonna say what's gonna happen, but building a shelter on the beach with the sand, and the fact that it's near the river, I'm not gonna give away too much, but something happens later in a future episode, but I will save that for next week. But no, they got their shelter set up, and with the new tribe, and with they're all playing an individual game now, there's no need for the immunity idol. It's now going to be the immunity necklace / talisman. Now, I like now, of course, with different seasons, there are different themes, and that goes according to the setting, the tribal council, and the immunity idol / necklace. And I like the design that they did for the necklace, where it's a painted rock talisman in the center, and then they have these the necklace is made out of these like different shells and beads that are also painted, and then there's also like 4, I don't know what teeth they are, but it looks like teeth that are on the necklace. There are 2 teeth on one side, and there are 2 teeth on the other side, with the rock painted rock talisman in the middle. I think it looked cool. It gives a really interesting design and really makes it stand out. But anyway, we get into the first individual immunity challenge of the season, and it's called Perch. Now, basically what you do in this challenge is you just simply stand on a perch in the middle of a river or lake or wherever you're at, depending on location, and you have to stay up there for as long as you can. And if you fall off your perch, you're out of the challenge. The last person standing wins immunity. Now, there will be certain moments where Jeff would offer you food, and if you choose to step off, you get the food item, or you participate, depending on how many people decide to jump off for food. Now, this season was the first time this challenge has ever been presented, and it would later be oh my goodness, I'm losing my train of thought. It would later be seen again in later seasons, particularly Season 6, Survivor Amazon, and Season 10, Survivor Palau. And I can't recall the last time I've ever seen this challenge again, other than those 2 seasons. But it's interesting to see how this challenge actually started and where it began, and where the offering of food came into play for the players. Now, we get into the challenge, and the first person who stepped off was Nick. Yeah, Nick was the first person to step off after 90 minutes, Jeff has said. Nick claims that he was sick and that he wasn't gonna last long, so he needed the time to rest, I guess. But dude, ever since you came here, I'd say you've been mostly resting. From what I've seen, you've been mostly resting. I mean, I'm sure there have been moments where you were gathering firewood and trying to help out fish or swim, but I think you've mostly been out there in the shelter. Oh yeah, he also made the kind of kitchen at the Kuja camp. I will point that out. So I guess, Nick has his moments where he's being productive, but there's also been moments where he's been least productive. But anyway, we get further into the challenge, and I know that Colby stood up while also doing a cool backflip while he was jumping off the podium. And him and Nick are sitting there. Moments later, Jeff comes out with a plate full of sliced apples, and in the center, a jar of peanut butter. This grabs everyone's attention. And Jeff asks everyone if anybody was willing to step off for a jar of peanut butter. Which, by the way, Colby and Nick were eating it too. And then when Jeff offered it up, Roger stepped off, and so did Jeff Varner. Jeff Varner hesitated a little bit, but he then took the opportunity to go get the peanut butter. And he really got into it. Like, he took a big chunk or scoop and just started eating it. Now, for those of you who don't know, peanut butter is one of the biggest two food items requested on Survivor. The second one is chocolate, which we did see last season when it was offered as a reward. So this would be I think this would be introduced back in season 6 Amazon, and the people who asked for that, I'm not getting into too specific details here, but for everybody listening, they should probably know what happened. But when I get to that season, I will go in full detail. Hopefully not too much full detail Anyway, I'm getting too ahead of myself. So moments pass by. We are down to 5 people. Tina, Elizabeth, Alicia. No wait, maybe it's just 4. 4 people. It's Keith, Alicia, Tina, and Elizabeth. Yeah. And it's starting to get night out, and there were 8 hours and 59 minutes in, almost 9 hours. And it was there that Elizabeth decided that she wanted to get into a boat and just head back. She wasn't gonna swim and go into the cold water while everybody was still up there. I mean, it's night out, so I wouldn't blame her. So it's down to 3. They're trying their all in this challenge. And 10 hours, I almost said minutes, 10 hours into this challenge, and Jeff comes in with coffee and hot chocolate in the boat, offering anybody to step down for it. Alicia does it, and then Keith confides to Tina that he really needs this. And Tina agreed to it, since she was mostly thinking about... She didn't want to do it because she really wanted to win, but at the same time, she's willing to put her selfishness aside for the team in order to make sure that they stay strong. So, good on Tina for that. So with that, Keith is the first individual to win individual immunity for the season, and we go into tribal council since it's the same day as the challenge and it's already nighttime. Now, interesting thing to point out, the reason Colby jumped off early, oh yeah, I forgot. Amber and Elizabeth, not Elizabeth, Amber and Jerry, they jumped off when Jeff offered ice cream and hot fudge. And if you know Jerry, she loves chocolate. So when she saw the hot fudge and the ice cream, she was like, she's jumping. And so did Amber. Amber and Jerry were probably like best friends out there, if I should say so. But anyway, continuing where I left off. Colby the reason he jumped off early was just so he could show that to the Kucha players that he is the one that is feeling most secure and that everybody's after him and that he's seen as more of a threat to receive votes rather than the other two who actually have votes. In this case, it would be Jerry and Keith. So at Tribal Council, we get into the voting, and Colby's plan worked. 5 votes for Colby, and then 5 votes for Jeff Varner. Now we get into a revote. Colby and Jeff cannot vote, and the rest of them go vote again. We have another tie. Now, because this was the first time Colby received votes, he had no votes cast for him in previous tribal councils, so when it was deadlock, it was 0 votes passed from Colby, and then 2 votes for Jeff. Or was it 3? 2 or 3 votes for Jeff that happened to him in tribal council. And with that, Jeff Varner is the first person from the merge to be voted out. But this is not the last time we see of Jeff Varner, though. He does return in Survivor Second Chance and Survivor Game Changers, but I will not reveal how long he lasted, and I will not reveal what monumental impact it had on in Survivor history. But with that said, Jeff Varner was the 7th person to be eliminated, and now we move on to the next episode. Now, of course, Kucha really felt bad that their numbers were stumbling and that Jeff was gone. And as much as Elizabeth could hate the fact that they're still down numbers, she wasn't going to give up. She was still going to try to fight and make sure that she still stays in the game along with her fellow tribe mates, especially Roger, aka Kentucky Joe, since they got the father and daughter connection going on there. But as they were fishing, though, Elizabeth and Tina started getting to know each other. And they start talking and we're getting along with each other. And that seems okay for the most part. But to Jerry, aka the Black Widow herself, she notices this and feels as though it could possibly hinder her game. And I say that for a good reason, because if you're on Survivor and if you feel like your former tribe mates are being buddy with other tribe mates, and you're worried that after all the stunts you've pulled in your previous time with your tribe that you could possibly be voted out, then I'd say that I would be worried. And also, I don't know if Jerry, she had to be self-aware of what she was doing, because it did put a target on her back, the way she was treating everybody and what she was doing around camp. So it could come back to bite her. And this is starting to show with Tina getting along with Elizabeth. So Jerry's very weary of Tina right now and worried that she might waver from the tribe, her former tribe. But anyway, we get into the reward challenge in this episode. The episode 8, by the way. We're on episode 8. And it's a cool challenge, I'm not gonna lie. So last season where they had a bow and arrow and they had to shoot at a target in order to receive the reward, and whoever was closest to the bullseye won. Well, this is similar, but instead of bow and arrow, they have boomerangs. You can't get any more Australian than that when you have a boomerang. Now, boomerangs are used as both for fun and both for hunting. It's a great hunting weapon out there in Australia. It's killed kangaroos. Sure, it might hit a few dingoes, but oh my goodness, I almost sounded Australian there. But here's how the challenge works. One at a time, each tribe member is going to pick a boomerang and launch it, hoping to get hit on the target. Whoever is closest to the bullseye wins. Now, this is an interesting challenge, and quite frankly, I would have loved to be a part of this challenge. I don't know if I've ever thrown a boomerang in my life. I mean, I don't think I have. Did I? I don't think so. But I would love to fool around with a boomerang. Not that I wouldn't get hurt, but no, it's so interesting the fact that a boomerang can, once you throw it, it can come back to you. I always love that about boomerangs, and I would absolutely love to have one if I could find one. Hopefully they got some on Amazon. But anyway, so we get into the challenge. I think Keith tried. He didn't make a target. And I know that okay, several of them were either hit or miss. Some landed on a target, some of them didn't land on a target. I think one of them actually hit a rock aside the castmates. But nobody got hurt. Nobody got hurt from it. And then Jerry went up, and she got not necessarily in the bullseye area, but around like the inner ring to where the bullseye is. And Amber was up next, and she threw hers, and it looked like her and Jerry were at the same level, but Jeff had to be sure, so he got measuring tape out. Okay, let's be real. It's not really a measuring tape. It's just a string with just like different markers of different measurements. And it's, hey, whoever helps you will get an accurate decision. That's all you. So after measurements, just by inches, Jerry was the winner. Now, the reward was a full course meal, including an appetizer, which involved shrimp, entree, which involved chicken, and, of course, dessert. No doubtly, it would probably include chocolate, especially if it was for Jerry. Now, Jerry had a decision to bring one person with her, and this is a fair reason why. But Jerry decided to take Amber because she was the closest to her to almost beating her. So, it's fair. Let's be real. If you were on Survivor, and if you had to bring people along for a reward, and this would be me personally, but if I were in a scenario where I was choosing people to go on a reward with me, yeah, I would choose people who are in my alliance, but at the same time, I also gotta think about challenge-wise, whoever came closest, and second, who hasn't eaten or gone on a reward. I have to think about those two things as well. Even if they are my enemy, I can't be that vindictive against them. Q. Sorry. I still haven't forgotten anything that you done to Liz, Q. I still haven't forgotten. That was jacked up. Anyway. So of course they have their meal, and everybody's back at home. Surprisingly, not eating rice. They have cans of spaghetti. Oh my goodness, canned spaghetti. I mean, I think I had that when I was a kid once. Canned spaghetti, and you know, it was good, Chef Boar ID wise. But would I eat it again? No, definitely not. I prefer to have it from either Olive Garden or just homemade. Anyway, so they have spaghetti at camp, which is great. All the while, Jerry and Amber are having their full 4-course meal. 3-course meal, I should say. And by the way, they got rolls with butter. Now, I've never been to a Texas Roadhouse before, and when I saw the roll and butter, I immediately thought of like Texas Roadhouse. And I wonder, okay, one of these days, I would like to go to Texas Roadhouse just so I can try their rolls and butter. I don't know about anything else. I just want to try the rolls with the butter. But anyway, Amber and Jerry are talking about how Tino was kind of getting close with Elizabeth from Kucha, and they would have to keep an eye on her, and that it maybe kind of shift from tribal bonds to new bonds, and that will no longer be tribal lines. So Jerry's very cautious of that and wants to be on top of it. We get into the next challenge. It's a very interesting challenge, to say the least. So there's this big grid where there are different posts and lanyards. What's the freaking thing for the red carpet where they have the deal holes like the red rope, and I don't remember the name right now. But anyway, it's something like that, although it's more bush-like. So there's a grid where posts and ropes are dangling. I'll just call them ropes. And they had to make squares with each of the post corners. And if they make a square, they have to claim it as their own. I don't remember how many there are, but whoever had the most squares filled in the end wins immunity. Now, Amber started. She hits the square. Then we got Nick getting a few, Tina getting a few, Jerry getting a lot. But after Jerry's turn, Keith starts landing one by one. I don't want to say too many ones, otherwise my throat's gonna hurt. But anyway, even though Jerry picked a good fight, Keith won immunity again. That's 2 times in a row Keith has won immunity. And oh my goodness, I'm losing my train of thought here. Now, we get further into the episode and we see thunder clashing in the background in the skies. That's probably, oh my goodness, I think I burped. My apologies. But anyway, that is a sign that rain is going to be coming soon again, and it's going to be another wet night in the Outback. Wet night and also a thundering night in the Outback. Thunder Down Under. Hey! Thunder Down Under. That's going to be the episode title. Oh my goodness. But we got into tribal council, and of course, there had been talk about from Kucha that they were wanting to get rid of Jerry because Ogakor has dealt with Jerry long enough, and Jerry had outstayed her welcome. So they were thinking that if they can convince someone from Ogakor that they could get rid of Jerry, then maybe the numbers could be brought back onto their side. And then Ogakor was talking about getting rid of Alicia because she is a physical threat. She's a personal trainer. She's built. She could be a big threat challenge-wise, and they don't want to have to deal with that. So that's who Ogakor thought about getting out. Now, we get into tribal council. Of course, it starts raining. Everyone's got their jackets to keep themselves all safe from the rain, making sure they don't get wet. Surprisingly, though, none of their torches get out by the rain. That is shocking. Or maybe somebody in the background, like in behind the scenes crew, was just relaying torches if they did go out. Anyway, we get into the vote. At first, it was just 4 votes for Alicia and 4 votes for Jerry. Now, there's one last vote remaining. And before I reveal the last vote, I just want to say shout out to I think it was freaking Amber. I think it was Amber who drew the drawing of Alicia with the guns. That's a way to make her stand out. But anyway, the next person to be voted out of the merge, and the first person of the jury was Alicia. Another member from Kucha voted out, leaving the odds 3 Kucha and 5 Ogakor. Ogakor still has numbers, and it looks like it's going to be a Nerpagonging, unfortunately. But anyway, we get into the next episode. And after last night's incident with the rain and the thunder, there's definitely a big change going on at Tribal Council, where the water is a lot more muddier now in the river, and it's starting to get harder to see the fish and try to get a hold of them, as Roger or Keith has seen. And the fish are grabbing the fish hooks and yanking them off, so as they're having a hard time catching fish, they're also losing fish hooks. And that's really bad. Knowing that you're out there in that environment and you're having to deal with the struggles and the aftermath of what's going on, especially out there in nature, where the water's a lot more muddier now and you can't see crap and all to what's lying underneath, and it's risking your life of survival out there. It's where you can't catch any more fish because it's so hard to see with the water being more muddier than it was. So, but hey, the Aboriginals, they have lived out there for many years by adapting to the environment. And I don't know what they would have done if they were in that scenario, but they might have found a way. Who knows? It might have been much more easier for them to like spearfish, or maybe, well, depending on what kind of fish it would be, to maybe also like noodle. And for those of you who live in Oklahoma, you know what noodling is. Catching fish with your bare hands. That's probably one of the two choices. You can either fish by catching them with their hand, or poking them with a stick or a spear. That's about the only thing you can do if you don't see anything down there. Then again, if there's a person swimming down there, you know what? You might want to avoid that idea. I'm sorry. Nathan Newport, you have any ideas to commit murder? No. Let's not have that happen. Oh my goodness. But no, we do see the struggles that are going on. But let's try to lighten things up here, though, with the challenge, the next reward challenge. Now, for this challenge, the tribe mates have to get partnered into pairs. So 4 pairs of 2. The pairs were, and they choose randomly, the pairs were Colby and Jerry, Keith and Amber, Nick and Elizabeth, and then Tina and Roger. And out of all the people Colby could have gotten partnered with, he had to get partnered with the one person he was seen having a crush on, but in all reality, he didn't really have any romantic feelings for her. Also, I just want to point out, Jerry, through the duration of the merge, she's been keeping an eye on some of the people, especially Kucha. Even Elizabeth was noticing that Jerry likes her rice to be cooked a certain way, so it had to be stirred like this for this long, and you have to keep the lid on. And whenever somebody's doing something that she doesn't like, she just looks at them. And I'm like, would you rather do it yourself? My goodness. I mean, girl. But anyway, I'm sorry, Jerry. You just kind of you're just kind of hard to live with, sometimes around camp. But anyway, we get into the challenge, and it's an obstacle course, and 2 pairs, one at a time, will have to go into the obstacle course and try to make it to the end. The pair that makes it moves on to the final round. There are 2 rounds, with 2 pairs going head-to-head against each other. The last round, the pairs that remain, they go through the obstacle course, and the first pair that makes it through the finish line wins the reward. In this case, they get to go on a snorkeling adventure through one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Great Barrier Reef. Now this is cool. Me being an adventurous kind of person, and also someone who likes animals and ocean life, get to see, or I would absolutely love to go see the Great Barrier Reef and see all the water and ocean life down there. That would be cool if I could go to Australia to go see the Great Barrier Reef. It's one of the 7 wonders in the world, and who wouldn't like to go down there? Who knows, maybe I can go see Nemo. No, I will not go see Nemo down there, because clearly Nemo is back up in Borneo. For those of you who know what I mean, you know what I mean. But anyway, we get into the challenge. It was Tina and Roger versus Keith and Elizabeth. Keith and Amber, I'm sorry. And Keith and Amber won the first round. Then we have the next round where Jerry and Colby go up against Nick and Elizabeth. And then Colby and Jerry won that round. So it's Keith and Amber versus Colby and Jerry. Tri-mates competing against one another, where only one pair wins. And the race is on. Sound like a horse track announcer. And the race is on! No. And at the end, it was Colby and Jerry that wins. Yay, they get to go on their somewhat honeymoon, as Jerry would say. But no, it's cool. To go to the Great Barrier Reef by helicopter, and they also get nice refreshments and food from a strawberry, fruits to meats and cheeses and all kinds of pastries, from what I've seen. They even got cool cameras that they could take photos with, even underwater. They're waterproof cameras. How crazy is that? They are waterproof cameras. Meanwhile, back at camp, you got everybody feeding on rice, and, like I said, I'm not a big fan of rice. I would not like to eat it, but you gotta do what you can out there to survive. So we get into the next challenge, and this one's kind of different. Yes, they do compete in pairs, but it's 1-on-1 instead of 2-on-2. So one person goes up against another person, and then we start eliminating them until it gets down to the last 2. Now I don't remember who goes up against who, but the last 2 remaining were Nick and Colby. Now, Nick has been picked out by Ogakor as one of the weakest, and therefore needs to go. Or maybe one of the strongest. But anyway, he's still a Kucha, and he needs to go. So, as much as Colby could try his hardest to make sure that Nick doesn't get that immunity necklace, he still stumbles, and Nick ends up winning, keeping him safe from being voted out, which is unfortunate for Ogakor, and especially Jerry. But we get into tribal council, and Elizabeth has been confiding with Tina to vote with the Kucha members to get rid of Jerry. So she confided to Tina, who confided to Keith, who also confided to Colby. And, it's been kind of building up to this point that they've really been loathing Jerry, and how she's been kind of not running the camp necessarily, but she's definitely been like a person who's been hanging on off of their backs, and at some point was ready to stab them in the back. So, with that said, with just 2 votes for I think it was Roger. It was either Roger or Elizabeth. You know what? Yeah, it was for Elizabeth. So 2 votes for Roger from Jerry and Amber, and the rest of the votes, 3 Kucha and 3 Ogakor worked together and voted out Jerry, the Black Widow, making her the 2nd member of the jury. And with that said, we now have 2 members on the jury. The jury is starting to build up more, and we are now down to 7 people left in the game, and there's still many more days out of 42 days of Survivor to go. Now, normally I would get into a point where I would answer a question and from you guys that you would send, but lately, as I've seen, there have been less questions coming in recently, and that's unfortunate. I really wanted to express my Survivor knowledge. Then again, there's always next time, and whether or not I will get to answer your guys' question, hence I look forward to doing so. But if you guys want to send me a question, you could send it to me on Instagram through Survivor Savant on podcast. You can find it on that account, or my personal account too, at Mr. Nathan Newport. You can send me a question through that. But even though I don't have any questions for you guys to answer, or for me to answer, I am still happy that, this is the 8th episode, guys, of this podcast. Come on. When I started this, I didn't realize I still got way more seasons to go with this podcast, but at the same time, it's kind of exciting knowing that I'm up to 8 episodes now with this podcast. And I hope to keep building on more and more, giving you guys my description and my thoughts about each season and each episode as we continue on with this podcast. I'm absolutely happy to do this, and I will continue to do this for not just my entertainment, but for your guys' entertainment who listen. So with that said, thank you guys so much for listening to this. I hope you enjoyed being outsmarted, outclassed, and outspoken with the Survivor Savant podcast. This is Nathan Newport, signing out.